Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan Lugo. Thank you so much for tuning in here on Wednesday, May 3rd. We are grading the picks this week for the Jaguars in the 2023 NFL draft class. We've talked about Anton Harrison, Brenton Strange. Encourage you, if you want to go back and check those out. But right now we're talking about Tank Bigsby. Send in the tank. The Jaguars, with the 88th overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, they selected running back Tank Bigsby out of Auburn. At 21 years old, Tank Bigsby stands 5'11", nearly 6 feet tall, and weighs in at 215 pounds. Weighed in at 210 at the Combine, came in at 5 pounds heavier at his pro day, and he ran a 4.45 blazing 40-yard dash for his size at the pro day. Love to see that. Right now, we're discussing whether or not this was a good pick. I'll be handing out a grade at the end. You got to talk about the talent, the traits, the production, the athleticism, the team fit, all of it. We'll dive into all that with Tank Bigsby, what he's bringing to Duval right now. Checking the tape. What does he bring to the field at the running back position? I think you see that he has quality vision, not just to find the designed space that's there in front of him, but to find extra yards as well with that vision. Extremely explosive in his first 10 yards. You see that in the 10-yard split on his 40-yard dash to get to the second level of the defense. And that's where you make a lot of money in the NFL. Running backs that are able to get to the second level with haste, with explosiveness. You see that from a lot of the best backs coming out year over year. And Tank Bigsby has really good explosiveness in that first 10 yards. He not only has contact balance, but he runs with some power behind him. He can lower the boom and fight for tough yardage. That's something I think you really like to see in Jacksonville. He's highly creative as well with the ball in his hands. I think that goes back to his vision a little bit, like a sixth sense a little bit, where he can find cutback lanes and creases, has the lateral agility and the jump cuts to find those unexpected creases and to exploit them in a big way. I think you see that with regularity on his tape at Auburn, and he'll rip off massive chunk plays. So you've got some power, you've got some speed. Again, a 4.45 40-yard dash at his pro day at 215 pounds. That shows up on tape. And pass protection, I think you see the willingness, but that's still a work in progress. You've definitely seen development over the course of his career in that regard, but still a little bit of a work in progress. He also let the ball hit the ground a few too many times as a receiver. You see the ability for him to go extend away from his body and catch some passes, but I think you've just seen some focus drops at points throughout his career that you'd like to eliminate a little bit. So not a receiver who doesn't, or a running back who doesn't have receiving skill and talent, just someone who I think needs to hone in a little bit on some of the easy catches that he misses. And then as a ball carrier, earlier on in his career, a little bit of a fumbling issue back in 2021. Cleaned that up for the 2022 season, so I think you can feel pretty good about that moving forward. But just something to kind of think about when you're looking at Tank Bigsby coming out of Auburn. He did fumble a bit earlier in his career, but I think he has cleaned that up. For me, this is in a way, this pick at 88 overall, a little bit of a pivot from Travis Etienne. Not a complete pivot, but he has some similar characteristics to Etienne. You see the long speed, similar size, and some creativity. Both of them have that, certainly. But he just brings a little bit more power, a little bit more pop to the table, a little more finishing, in my opinion. I think he's going to do some short yardage stuff for the Jaguars in 2023. I think he's going to do some finishing off drives, finishing off games potentially, and I think he should be really effective in that role. Again, he's going to be more of a battering ram than Travis Etienne is. I think you get Travis Etienne in space. That's where you want to see him. Tank Bigsby, you can get him running more north-south, more in between the tackles, and again, finishing runs at a high level. He gives the offense more talent, more depth at the running back position, and again, a much-needed power trait. The Jaguars, they drafted Snoop Conner last year, I think in hopes of him being a power back for them. But the way they've handled this position since drafting Snoop Conner in the 5th round, I think it indicates that they're not quite in love with the player that they ended up landing in the 5th round, because all they've done is again, draft Tank Bigsby in the 3rd round, which is a pretty high value for a running back. Bring in Dearness Johnson, who's a back who has experience in this league, has a lot of talent as a back. And then also, of course, they brought in Jermichael Hasty last year as well, who ended up being kind of the RB2 for the Jaguars after James Robinson left. So I think that the Jaguars were looking for someone to come in and potentially be able to provide this power, to provide this spark off the bench when Travis Etienne needs a blow. I think they found that in Tank Bigsby. The Jaguars, they've been criticized for not addressing their draft needs, but outside of nickel, they weren't finding another year 1 starter outside of the 1st round. You know, they got a year 1 starter in Anton Harrison, in my opinion. Obviously, he'll start the season with Cam Robinson on suspension. We'll see what happens after that. But outside of that, I don't think that, again, outside of the nickel position, that you are going to find another year 1 starter in this class. Because, look, even if you drafted an edge rusher, is he a starter? No, you've got Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker. Any position you were going to look at this point, outside of nickel, maybe interior offensive line at left guard, was going to end up being a backup, being a role player. So I don't have any problem with that. The Jaguars returned, 21 starters from a year ago. So you find a role player with starting potential, I'm good with that. Bigsby absolutely has the talent to be a starting running back at the next level in the NFL. I had a 2nd round grade on him that could have been even higher if there weren't some inconsistencies with the focus as a receiver. But a tremendous ball carrier, no doubt about it. Really, really talented. This pick is an A for me. I know folks devalue the running back position, but just ask the Kansas City Chiefs how valuable a young, hungry, powerful back with speed and explosiveness can be. I mean, they rode Isaiah Pacheco to a championship last year. I'm not saying Tank Bigsby is the same player as Isaiah Pacheco, but there's a lot of similar traits there. They both have long speed. They both have power. They both run angry. So I think that there's some of that to this pick. The Jaguars, again, wanting to close out games late in the year, wanting to close out drives late in the year. I think that this is the type of pick that should help the Jaguars win some of these close games in 2023. No doubt about it in my mind. He's not a Travis Etienne replacement. He's a Travis Etienne supplement. You've got one of the most explosive backs in the league in Travis Etienne. You add Tank Bigsby to that mix. You now have a dynamic 1-2 punch that can really test defenses in a lot of different ways. And I think playing behind this Jaguars offensive line with Phil Rauscher scheming up this run game, with Anton Harrison being added to the offensive line who can really get out in space, Brenton Strange being added to the tight end group who can also, block at an extremely high level. I like the pick. I like the combination of players the Jaguars came away with in the first 2 days of this draft. And obviously we've got a lot more to talk about when it comes to draft or grading these draft picks, right? But for me, over the first 2 days, the Jaguars did a heck of a job. And I know Brenton Strange has been criticized. I know Tank Bigsby pick has been criticized because he's a running back and folks don't really value that position anymore. But I think they did a hell of a job, and I think they landed players who are going to help them out in 2023 to be more versatile, to be more multiple on the offensive side of the ball in Brenton Strange and Tank Bigsby, and guys who have starting potential down the road. Without question, in my opinion. So again, Tank Bigsby pick gets an A for me. Had a 2nd round grade on him. I think what he brings to the Jaguars offense is really valuable. So I was a big fan of the pick, big fan of the direction the Jaguars went over the first 2 days, first 3 rounds of the 2023 NFL Draft. Next up, we will have the 4th round. Now that we're getting into day 3 and the Jaguars have 10 picks left, we're going to start going round by round, so we're not just dropping 10 more videos on draft grades here. But really appreciate y'all for tuning in. Hit me up on Twitter at Jordan DeLugo. Follow Generation Jaguar at Generation Jag. Hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube. Notification bell. You can also drop a comment in the comment section. And if you're on your podcast platform of choice, please subscribe and review. Helps us a ton. Thank you so much, Duval.